Hello, Connie here from Prosperity Finance. I designed a tool help you to see the cash flow projection if you have investment property you acquired before the 27th March 2021. Now, a lot of you probably have heard about 2 weeks ago, New government announced some new policies aiming to help first home buyers. Now, of those policies, there are two policies that actually not in investors' favor. One of them is extending bright line rule from 5 years to 10 years. And the other one is not allow property investors to claim interest on investment property loan as expense anymore from 1st October 2021. Now, with the bright line rule, a lot of property investors, I'm sure they want to hold the property for long term. A lot of people have investment property really for their retirements. However, the other rule, which is interest deductibility rule, is really devastating to a lot of us. The reason it's so critical is because that directly affect the cash flow. Now, as any business, cash flow is a business blood. Without blood, people can't live, right? Same for business. Without cash flow, your business cannot survive. You're broke, right? So investment property business is no different from other business in that aspects. As investors has to pay extra cash to cover the tax obligation. It is important to understand what the actual cash flow required in order to service all the expenses, including the extra tax obligations. That's why I designed this tool to help you to quantify the amount so that you can start early, start planning, consult other experts such as property consultant and tax consultant so that you can plan early and get best possible outcome. So let's have a look what that tool looks like. Really a simple Excel spreadsheet. Now, all you need to do is input values in those blue cells, okay? And then we will notice what's, the changes on the left-hand side. Now, this looks like a profit loss report, but it's more like a cash flow forecast for the next 5 financial years. Now, just a disclaimer, this is not tax advice and certainly is not your actual cash flow. It is just a proxy, your cash flow for your rental property. And the purpose of this tool is just to help you do the budget and think about what you're going to do for the next few years. Now here, I made assumption that the input in the blue cell would apply for the next 5 years. Also, this model is designed for property which were acquired before 27th March 2021. Because if you acquire after that, then from 1st October 2021, the interest costs will not be allowed to offset at all. So basically, you're looking at the financial year 26 position. But what's more difficult is for investors who had property acquired before the 27th March. What does it look like over the next few years? I am also going to explore other factors which also may affect your cash flow. Firstly, let's have a look at this example. So for illustration purpose, I've already input some values here. Now put your property address here, and that's a weekly rent. Occupation rates, here I assume 100%. Now normally you get notice from your existing tenants if they're going to leave the property so that you have enough time to find the new tenants. And from my experience, there won't be any vacancies between the two tenants. So that's why I put 100%. Now, the next section is about expenses of running a rental investment property. Here I exclude the interest cost, but just other costs. So we have insurance, 1,000. If you have property manager, I put 8% of the rent. Now rates, that's the council rates. And also in some area like in Auckland, the landlord is responsible for water fixed charge. Your tenants only look after the usage. Now I also allow some maintenance costs. It depends your property, if it's relatively new or a bit outdated. So you can put whatever you believe the maintenance cost for your property. Now the next section is about your loan details. So here I made the assumption about my loan interest rates. Most of people are low interest rates, some even less than 3%. And then the loan balance is at 1st April 2021. And the repayment method. Now, a lot of investors have their loan on interest only if possible. Now, as at today, all banks allow interest only for your investment property, as long as the servicing stack up. And then here is the, sorry, I accidentally changed the input. So the next one is the remaining loan term. So you can find from the loan details on your internet banking or phone banking. There's a loan detail tab, so you can see what is the remaining loan terms here. And the last section input is your tax rates. All right, so let's have a look the left-hand side. So let me explain. So on the top is your income, okay, which is the rent. In this case, based on $650 a week, 100% occupancy rates, that's what you get for your revenue. And then all the expenses here. So property management is based on your percentage input. So then I get the outgoings. Right, so in this case, we can see that without the interest costs, it's only 6,900 a year, but you get 33,800. Okay, so without the interest, there will be a big profit, which is taxable. Okay, but in reality, we do have to pay interest, right? There's no free lunch, right? So in this case, it's interest only. So 750K is the loan balance, timed by 3%. That's the annual interest cost. So now I get my profit before tax, before principal repayments. It's also a cash flow. We can call it cash flow. So that's about $4,396. And then I pay my tax at 33%. So then my net cash flow at the moment is just under 3,000 every year. That's before the new rule kick in. Okay. Now, to a lot of people, even though you probably purchased the property last year at 80% leverage LVR, it's more likely you also are in a positive cash flow because interest rates are low. And if you are interest only, it's very likely you are in positive cash flow. Okay. Now let's have a look. What is the implication as a result of the new tax rule? So now, basically from October 21, you can only claim 75% of the interest for that financial year. Okay, and then in this financial year, you can claim 75% of total interest as expense. And for 2024 financial year, you can only claim 50%, and then 25, and then nothing in this financial year, 2026. So basically, for 1st April 2025 onwards, which is start of this financial year, according to the new rule, you cannot offset interest against your rent at all. Okay, so for this year, you're going to pay extra tax of $7,425. Ouch. Okay, so then it's your total tax. Okay, so basically that's the tax plus the extra tax. That's give you the total tax and the new rule. And then they give you the net cash flow, post-interest. Okay, a post-interest net deductibility rule. That's the cash flow position. So you can see for the first year, the gap is relatively small. you know, 2,900 versus 2,000. Okay, but look at this here. It's from positive 2,900 to negative 4,480. Now, this is only just for one property. What if you have, you know, 2, 3, or more? Can you really afford it? You have to run your numbers, right? So that's just the one factor that reduce your cash flow, but it can be significant. Depends on the input, also depends on how many property you have. Now, you notice that I have some text in red, okay? Not the numbers. The numbers will become red when it's negative, but the text. So one is here, but there's also other three here, which is tax rates, repayment method, and the interest rates. Now, this government rule is just a trigger, but other things can also happen, and it can all happen at the same time. So we need to be aware of these and see what is the worst scenario. So the second factor that affects cash flow is the tax rates. And you probably know by now, from 1st April, for some people, if they're earning over 880K a year, you will be taxed at 33%. Now, you can see as soon as I change that, you know, these figure updated, right? Now that's become negative 6,000. Okay. Now let's see the next one. Now, why I want to mention this repayment method? Now, at the moment, as I mentioned, most of the banks allow you to do interest only, as long as the servicing stack up. However, the Reserve Bank may introduce a new policy which prevent bank allow interest only to investors anymore. So if that goes ahead, that means you have to pay principal and interest. And also for people who are interest only now, even the interest only policy still exists, but your servicing doesn't allow. You also have to pay principal and interest. And now I'm going to change that to principal and interest. Please watch the left-hand side of my screen, just see how the cash flow is going to change as soon as I change the methods. Right. Now you can see for 2026, you have to tip in $21,538. Okay. That's because you not only pay the interest, but you also pay principal. And here I only use 30 years for long remaining term. But if, let's say, you have 25 years, you can see the principal repayments even more. What if you have a bigger loan amounts, you know? That's huge difference. Okay. Now, finally, let's look at the rates. Now, most of people are on low interest rates, some even below 3%. Some are still 3 or more because you kind of lock in for longer, so it's still on the old rates. But generally speaking, we are at the bottom of the lowest interest rates. The interest rate would increase eventually. It's a matter of time. So we need to kind of sensitize this interest rate factor so that we can afford payments at a higher rate. So let's just change it to 4%. You know, it can be more than that. You know, during the GFC time, it was even close to 10%. So everything is possible for running an investment property. So let's say I change to 4. Look at that, 26,500. Wow, and that's, again, it's only for one property. What if you have a couple or more? It's going to be a huge difference. Just give you a quick summary so you can see the difference. So I have I take some screenshot just before this video so that you can see the difference, so I don't have to change all the time. So the first factor is the interest deduction rule change. And you can see that from 2,900 to negative 4,480. And the second factor is tax rates. If your tax rate is going to go up from 1st April, then you have to pay the extra. So it can be negative 6,000. And the repayment method from interest only to principal interest with this. And lastly, it's the interest rates change from 3 to 4. Look at that. Okay, so the purpose of this video is really to quantify cash flow variation from now, to under the new policy. And also, if other three factors, the tax rates, the repayment method, and interest rate do change, what your cash flow is going to look like per property, so that you can think more real. What are you going to do? Are you going to sell? Or you think about other strategy? I saw on the media, people talk about buying new built or commercial property, or restructured debt, or increase your yield, etc., etc. So they all can be strategies, but I think it's down to individual. So it is important that you start planning as early as possible. This tool is going to help you. And I also highly recommend that you use professionals, get their expert advice, like property experts, tax accountant, etc., so that they can help you to create a game plan and help you to achieve the best possible outcome. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you find this tool useful. If you have any question regarding your loan, feel free to contact us. We are more than happy to help you. Thank you. I will see you next time. Bye bye.